I'm Eric Bigelow. This is our fourth voluntary roundtable for I Am an Individual, and I'm talking today to Rob Matthias, who is the Voluntaryist Rebel. I'm sure you've seen some of his videos on our site. We've been reposting. He's been posting them on our site. Really good videos, by the way. Really enjoy those videos. Well, I want to get into how your activism started.
You know what? Like most people in the liberty movement, Ron Paul.
Same here.
Ron Paul woke me up, and that's how I discovered the non-aggression principle and all that jazz. And last year, I did some petitioning to get him on the ballot in Cook County, and then I went to a bunch of different meetups, went to sine waves, and even participating like this huge. They did all the Ron Paul supporters and whatnot. We got into the Chicago St. Patrick's Day parade, so I was part of their float. There's like 500 of us there passing stuff out and all that jazz. But even then, I mean, that's like my extent of really activism. I went to a bunch of that stuff, really just campaigning. Mm-hmm. And, I'll be honest, I still regret it. I voted for Gary Johnson, and I kind of regret even voting in that election, because I felt like I kind of realize now that by voting, you're really just endorsing the system, and I kind of regret that. I'm really new to voluntarism. That was kind of like my last thing to just let go. I didn't want to let go yet. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
I know what you mean.
I didn't want to let go to like changing the system. So I was still like, I guess I was an anarchist then. I was still like trying to grasp onto some hope that something could be changed, and that kind of woke me up to the point where, like, you know what? I just let go, and then it was kind of liberating, to be perfectly honest, and I kind of made a New Year resolution to myself that, at least I can do is start to be active this year. I want to go to do more activism stuff throughout the year. Hopefully I can get into something, I don't know. But I didn't want to wait also, so I decided, why not just make YouTube videos? I mean, I'm actually just using my phone to do it. I don't even have a computer or a webcam or anything like that. I'm just using my phone. But anyone with a smartphone can do what I'm doing.
Right, and you sent me that message that says I'm just an individual with a smartphone. But I mean, that's what's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, like you just said, anybody can do it, and everybody should be doing it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm filling in. Maybe I'm filling a niche that needs to be filled. I don't know, but I'm sure it'll be filled a lot more with other people. Mm-hmm. I'm just one person with a smartphone, bringing up what's on my mind at the time.
Right. Yeah, that's cool, man. It's funny you brought up Ron Paul and Gary Johnson, because me and my wife talked about this, before the election. And I had told her I viewed Ron Paul as basically an anarchist trying to persuade the system. Because more and more you read in his books, like In the Fed and Liberty Defined and things like that, there's a lot of voluntarism in there.
He's been quoted as saying that he's a voluntarist. Yes. In his going away speech on the floor of Congress, he said he was a voluntarist.
Yep. And then I saw Gary Johnson as, I saw Ron Paul as an anarchist trying to change the system. I saw Gary Johnson as a Republican trying to be a libertarian.
Yeah. I'll give you that. Yeah.
I argued with my wife about that too, and she's like, "Well, it's still a protest vote."
I really just voted for him because I was trying to support the Libertarian Party.
Right. Do you feel like it's possible that the Libertarian Party has gotten fleas for lying with the dogs?
I think Wayne Allen Root has not done. He did a lot of damage to the Libertarian Party, and Johnson advocated the bear tax also didn't help their cause any either.
Right. Yep. Now, I wanted to talk about, we kind of talked a little bit back and forth about possibly talking about the Constitution. And I don't know if you know this or not, and there's some people out there that might not know, but I wrote this book called Liberty Child during this election when Ron Paul was running. And I wrote this to try and persuade people, and I had it published and was trying to sell it. I honestly gave out more than I sold, which is fine. It's more about the message than the money.
I agree.
But in this book, this is kind of my awakening, is I wrote that the founders wanted anarchism. And if we were to evolve past our republic, we would have to evolve into anarchism or voluntarism, which I still believe that. But as far as the Constitution goes, I do agree somewhat, or I do agree 100% with Lysander Spooner that it was a contract for those men at that time. Now,
Yeah.
do you agree with that? Is that your feeling on the Constitution?
I completely agree with the fact that I never signed a contract, that whole theory. No one asked me if I wanted any of this. No one, just because I was born into it doesn't mean that I should accept it.
Right. Well, they're not even following it anyway.
Well, exactly. They 90% of what Congress does is unconstitutional.
Right. So here's the real question. We had talked back and forth a little bit about what can we do to bring, I guess we'll call them the statist libertarians, over to our side. What can we do to, I hate even saying this word anymore, but the Tea Partiers over to our side.
Yeah.
These people that have somewhat similar vision of.
Go ahead.
These people that have the somewhat similar vision as we do, is it, and we're pure voluntarists. We don't want anything, right? So would you be satisfied with going back to the Constitution, and is the going back towards the Constitution a stepping stone into what we eventually want?
I used to do that. I used to be all about restore the republic and all that jazz. I don't think that's even possible anymore. I mean, we have to come to facts that, we have to accept that the American experiment failed. The Constitution has failed. It's failed for the last 200 years. And like I made that video where, calling out George Washington for being a tyrant. I mean,
yep.
The experiment has failed. We have to accept that. Now, a lot of our problem that I kind of see is that we're kind of saying the same thing as the left, but we're not saying in the same way that the left is saying this. The left always says, well, disregard the Constitution and whatnot. And we need to somehow make our message like, no, we're not saying that get rid of the Constitution because we want bigger state government or bigger federal government.
Right.
We're saying get rid of the Constitution because we don't want a government.
Right. Yep. So, so when we're trying to, can we use, I feel like Ron Paul used the Constitution as something he could identify with people, right? Because the Constitution's fairly well known. Voluntarism is growing, but it's not as well known. So as voluntarists, can we try and kind of do what Ron Paul did and use the Constitution to our advantage to kind of pull people in? Does that make any sense, what I'm asking?
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, we have to approach the constitutionalists because those are the ones that I think we can probably win over.
Yep.
But at the same time, we need to invoke why they're able to write a constitution. That's because we fought, the revolution, and they didn't fight it over a piece of paper. They fought it to be free. And if the Constitution is prohibiting us from being free, then why would we still support it?
Yep, I agree with that. Yeah, I don't know how to 100% pull people over to our side, and I struggle with that, and I know we messaged back and forth, and how can we do that? And I don't know.
Well, my channel is it's kind of dedicated to those people, and I hope people take what some of my videos are about that and throw it at constitutionalists, because basically I'm trying to do one little nugget of information at a time, and hey, Article 1, Section 8, it is theft. First line, Congress shall have to collect taxes. People always talk about the Bill of Rights. The Fifth Amendment, at the end, says the government can steal your property as long as they give you a fair price for it.
Right. Yep. Which is unfair. There is no fair price if you're going to force it.
If you don't want to sell it, you don't want to sell it. That's your own individual decision.
Right. I always try and use the definition of voluntary when I'm talking to people. If it's not voluntary, then it's not freedom. If you're forced to do this, if anybody is forced, whether you would choose to do it or not, whether that individual that I'm talking to, they might want to pay taxes. But then if they agree with forcing somebody else to pay the taxes, then I'm trying to relate to them, well, then you don't believe in freedom. Basically calling them out on it, kind of.
I completely agree. You have to target what you're saying to certain people, but I like using the word voluntarist and voluntary society and voluntary interactions because Well, first off, let's face it, that sounds a lot cleaner, politically correct than anarchist. You talk to anarchists, and the first thing they think is, riots in the street and explosions everywhere.
Yeah, and I hate
And I'm
that
saying
because that's not
peaceful
what it means.
interactions between people.
Yeah, and I hate that people think that's what anarchist means because it totally doesn't. If you look up anything about anarchism, basically voluntarism, right? And like you said, the
Yeah.
term voluntarism just, it's almost like the anarchism puts a bad taste in people's mouths.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of depends on who you're talking to as well. But I like to say volunteers more. Even though I'm saying talking to anarchists, I like to use volunteers because I'm really advocating a non-aggression principle, where anarchists are more just saying we don't want to be ruled. I completely agree with that, but
Right.
you have to make more of an emphasis on the non-aggression principle.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, and I think that when you use the word at least in my experience, when I use the word voluntarism and I'm talking to people, it almost intrigues them a little bit because it is something that they haven't heard very often, and it makes them curious.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one reason I like using it. So, all right, so we were going to talk about patriotism too, as I personally view that patriotism can be dangerous. What is your view on patriotism?
Well, coming from a person who used to consider himself a patriot, I would agree. We for too much we always we want to say we're Americans and patriots by we'll wrap around the American flag and we'll defend ourselves. We'll look at other people on the other side of the planet as the enemy, and they're just people just like us. And
Right.
patriotism is used in this country to get behind wars. And it has been done like that since the beginning.
Right. Yep, I totally agree. They wave that flag around, and then people get all, "Oh yeah, let's get them," and then and it's
Yeah.
it's really sickening.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, most patriots are, they want freedom. They may not understand it, but they'll at least advocate saying we want freedom. We're defending freedom. Well, Kokesh had a great line. If the military was defending freedom to attack the government.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. We're not over there defending freedom, and the other spin to that is when you start talking against the wars to some people or a lot of people, then they think you're against the troops. Have you ever run into that? Oh, so you don't support the troops?
No, I've gotten that. Like my wife's really gotten that. She's actually a vet that served in Iraq too.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and we get that like a lot. We'll say like I'm not against any troop, but I'm against them, committing crimes in my name. I'm against them shooting innocent people, but I'm not against them. I want all to come home safely.
I always spin it and say, you know what? I'm not against the troops. And it's not about supporting the troops. I support the troops more than somebody willing to go send them to die for, something that's not even worth it, right? I'm for the troops because I want to bring them home.
One thing I always do, if I ever run into any active military personnel, or even vets for that matter,
Yep.
Even though I don't completely agree with Oath Keepers defending the state because they're still statists, but the fact that they're getting American military personnel to sign up on their website to say that they will not fire on American citizens if there was a violent collapse. And I always tell every military person I know about Oath Keepers.
Yeah. Now, to that point, I had made a post the other day on Facebook because this is just a question, that I think is really worth asking, especially with all this gun control stuff going on. Do you believe that the troops will confiscate guns, or do you think that will be like the UN or NATO or whoever that'll come in and take guns if that would ever happen?
Well, that already has happened once. That happened during Katrina.
Yes, it did.
So, I mean, if the fact that it already happened once in a couple of years ago, it's directly possible it would happen again. If that didn't happen, I would still be under the assumption like, oh, they're not going to use the military to confiscate guns.
Right.
But you can just go on YouTube and search Katrina gun confiscation. There's news reports about it.
Or what about Waco?
Oh, exactly about Waco. I mean, yeah, Waco is just a huge mess that happened. That should never have happened either.
Right. So, I mean, and I hate to use that example with people, but it's almost like people just overlook that. Oh, well, that was different. Well, yeah, it was different because it was smaller scale and it was a test. In my opinion, it was a test to see if the citizens would give them up. Are you still there?
Well, yeah, they're seeing what they get. Yeah, you broke up for a second. I think I got gist of it. I don't know if you want to re-ask it. You can look at a lot of things that have happened in the last 20 years is they'll test the waters to see if they can get away with doing it, and when they get away, they just move on to something bigger and grander.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's really
I mean, you can look at gun control and gun laws going back 100 years. They started small, and it's gradually getting worse and worse and worse. Same thing with the income tax. The income tax was sold to Woodrow Wilson. Well, Woodrow Wilson sold it to the country. It's only going to be on the 1%, the highest 1% of people and all that jazz, and now everyone pays income tax.
Yep, that's right. My taxes went up big time this year, too.
Mine, too.
Yeah, I think I'm paying an extra $180 every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing that people are like, well, we're going to get the health care for free. Well, you know, now my taxes went up and I have to pay for my own health care now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it's just absolutely ridiculous. All right, so here's a question, and I've seen this off of this is going back to Ron Paul. I've seen some people that have recently turned voluntarist, right? And you know, you follow people on Facebook, you got a bunch of friends, you talk to people.
Yeah.
And these people that used to be diehard Ron Paul, right? And that's kind of what introduced them into voluntarism and anarchism, non-aggression principle, right to self-ownership, got them reading Lysander Spooner and all these sorts of things. Now, I've seen them turn around and reject Ron Paul and call him a statist. I just wanted to see what your thoughts are on that.
I have not seen any Ron Paul person come out and call him a statist. The only ones I've seen maybe do that is in jest, and that's anarchists and voluntarists making fun of people following Ron Paul. But that's either they're doing that to make those people voluntarists or anarchists, or they're just doing that to be funny. I've never heard of any people, Ron Paul supporters, coming out and saying any of that. Though, I will say this, the Ron Paul people that are supporting Rand Paul should be ashamed of themselves.
Man, I totally agree with that. Absolutely, totally agree with that.
I mean, Rand Paul, I hope to God Rand Paul does not run in 2016. He will hurt the liberty movement beyond belief.
Yep, I agree. He didn't stick to the values that his father laid down.
No, he wants sanctions against Iran. He wants people locked up for political dissidents. He supported Romney. For that alone was enough for me to like, this guy is not for real.
Right.
Oh, that he tried to get Abby Martin arrested for just simply asking him a question.
Yeah, I'd be ashamed if I was Paul Sr.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I would be.
Now, whether those people are joking, I took it seriously when I seen it online, and I would never call Paul that, even if he did try to change the system using the system, which is, you know, somewhat against voluntarism philosophy, right? But he awakened so many people. Nobody has done what he has done.
No, I agree. He really, his entire career was nothing more than just an educational tour for the last 15 years.
Right.
You know, he used the system as literally an outlet to talk about liberty and freedom.
Can I ask you before we leave and we'll start wrapping up? I'm just totally curious.
Sure.
What is your favorite book right now?
My favorite book. I'm a huge fan of Andrew Napolitano.
Okay.
Right now, I'm finishing up. It's dangerous to be right when the government is wrong. So I guess that's my favorite now because that's literally what I'm reading right now. I'm almost done with it.
Oh, okay. Here, let me show you mine real quick. This is the old magazine called the Voluntaryist.
Okay.
And this book is called I Must Speak Out, and it's like all excerpts from this magazine. And you can get this on Amazon for like $16, and it's let's see how many almost 500 pages of articles that people have written about voluntarism. This book is awesome.
Is that what you caused you to start the I Am an Individual campaign? The book that you guys are doing?
Yeah. for the most part, this is by more popular authors. What I was basically trying to do is give people an opportunity that want to be published. It gives a blip on their radar. Everybody wants to be able to say, hey, I'm a writer and I have been published. And, it helps out authors that are trying to make it. And then it also gives each individual more of a voice. They can tell their friends to go online and buy it. And then a lot of people will receive the message that way too, right? So you got all these individual authors that have contributed to this book, and they might tell their family members, hey, go check out this book, get it on Amazon, because I've got an article in it, and their family members will buy it, because you know how families are, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll be introduced to the ideas. And
That's a good idea.
It might start sinking into their heads, so,
I have to do an entry. Yes. When's the cutoff date?
February 9th.
All right. I'll try by the end of the week. I'm not a good author. I want to write something up. I'll do something for it. I gotta contribute somehow.
We've got some editors that are working with us. Some they're kind of freelance editors, but they're professionals. They do it for a living and everything, but they're just not with a publishing house. But we've got some people that are helping us with all of that. So there's people that have submitted work, and their work honestly needed some help, right? Heck, mine need help. I'm not a perfect writer either, and but we've got a lot of people that are helping us out with a lot of things. I think it's going to turn out to be really, really good. So, yeah, I'd love to have an article by you in there. So,
yeah, well, I'm not a good writer. I'll write something up, but don't hold it up to like a gold standard or whatnot, because I've never been a great writer.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it, man. So definitely send us something.
Okay.
Definitely
I
send
will.
us something. And so I guess with that, we've covered everything that we I ammed about, and I think it turned out really good, and it was awesome talking to you, and I definitely appreciate it.
Oh, same here. Anytime.
Do you want to tell everybody your address on YouTube?
Yeah, just search for Voluntaryist Rebel on YouTube. Also on Facebook, same thing, Voluntaryist Rebel. I'm always active on Twitter at Voluntary Rebel. And I plan on getting a website up and running within the next couple months or whatnot. But right now, I'm just Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube.
Yep, and everybody out there, I definitely recommend that you check it out. His videos are awesome. So, thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.